Hey guys, George of SoundTraxx here. This week we're going to follow up on a very popular video that we did not too long ago talking about speakers. And we're going to cover some of the questions that have come up since then to try to help clarify a lot of the misconceptions and or maybe just generic questions that we've gotten over the time. So let's get started. Now, this first topic of the speakers comes with matching the wattage to the decoder. Now, many of our decoders put out 1 or 2 watts, and in the case of our Blue 4408 and the TSU 4400, they put out 3 watts. Now, what does that mean? Well, wattage is the power that the decoder can put out or the amplifier can put out. So potentially, you can send up to 3 watts of power out from the decoder. So when it comes to a speaker selection, you want to make sure that you've got a speaker that can handle 3 watts or more. Or in the case of some of our other decoders, 2 watts or more. Or in this case, I've got a small 1100 here in front of me, and this is a 1 watt or more. And notice I'm saying or more, because if you imagine the current flow, power flow from the decoder to the speaker like a river. If you have a river that's sending out, we'll say 1,000 cubic feet per second, which would be the equivalent of 1 watt, and you have a dam that can handle up to 1,000 cubic feet per second, all is good. The dam is perfectly fine. But if you send 2,000 cubic feet per second down that river, something's going to happen. Either the river's going to damage the dam and overflow and send more power down, causing problems, or it's going to backflood and flood the town that you're trying to protect and have the water supply for. So again, in that case, you'd want a dam that can handle 2,000 cubic feet per second. So this is where you want to make sure that you can match or higher the output that the decoder or the amplifier is rated for. Now, when it comes to pairing a regular decoder, say a 2 watt amplifier, our P&P, the 21P, or the 2200s with a 2 watt amplifier, and you've decided you wanted to use the Minicube. Well, the problem with the Minicube, our Minicube anyway, the 810154 Minicube, the most common one, is only rated for 1 watt peak with a 7/10 of a watt nominal. Now, when you hear the word nominal, it means normal or best. But when you hear a 1 watt peak, that means it can handle up to 1 watts as a max or a peak. So when you're trying to select the speaker for, say, that P&P decoder to go into, say, an Athearn model like I've got here, you probably want to make sure you're using 2 or more of the cube speakers so that way you can handle 2 or more amps. Now, when it comes to the power, you can put 2 cubes in it, and you can max out the decoder's volume and you're going to be okay. But I wouldn't recommend running a speaker at max all the time because it will degrade faster and potentially damage something, whether the speaker goes bad or it backfires and damages the amplifier. So when you're doing this, I would recommend being at about half volume or 1 3/4 volume, which is around 192 of 255 when it comes to the volume settings. That way you're not overtaxing the cube speakers when you use them. Now, if you choose 3, you can crank it up all day long and it'll be just fine. Now, when it comes to wiring multiple speakers, you want to pay attention to the impedance or the load that the decoder is rated for and the impedance ratings of the speakers. Now, most of the speakers you're going to get, like for example, this speaker here in front of me, is an 8 ohm impedance. And what that means is that if you were to take a multimeter and measure the resistance across the speaker terminals, you're going to get approximately 8 ohms. Maybe 7.99, maybe 8.02, but somewhere around that 8 ohm range. Now, many of the SoundTraxx amplifiers are optimal with an 8 ohm load, but you can go higher, so when you're wiring your speakers in series, you can do a 16 ohm load. And what that does, it actually eases up the demand on the amplifier, so the amplifier doesn't work as hard, but also now your 2 speakers are working together. Now, if you were to wire your speakers in parallel, that creates a 4 ohm load, which is going to overtax and overdrive the amplifier, potentially leading it to an early grave. So you really want to make sure that you maximize the impedance by wiring your speakers in series, which is from one speaker to the other speaker and then back to the decoder. You want to make sure to optimize that so that way when your speakers are running together, they're using a little bit more impedance. Now, if you were to wire the 4 speakers, let's say in a series parallel, which means I'm going to take 2 speakers, wire them in series, I'm going to take another 2 speakers, wire them in series, and then I'm going to parallel the pairs, that actually brings you back down to an 8 ohm load, which again is perfect for the 8 ohm impedance for our amplifiers. Now, the next one that we're going to talk about has to do with baffles, and so I've got a little demonstration here in front of me. Now, a lot of people will question the importance of a baffle. Why does my speaker need a baffle? Well, you can hear this locomotive idling sitting here in front of me. We blow the whistle. We're going to start moving them at about speed step 10. You can hear the sounds, but you don't really hear that depth that you would expect to hear, especially from a large speaker. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this box. This is some generic box that I happen to have sitting on my desk. If any of you guys recognize this, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this box and I'm going to put it over the speaker to simulate a baffle. So I'm going to blow your whistle so you can hear it. You don't hear a really deep sound, but once I put this box over there, now you can hear how that tone has changed. Now when I blow the whistle, you can really hear how that depth of tone, the deep bass sounds have now come through. So now with a baffle, without a baffle, with a baffle, without a baffle. And this is not even the ideal baffle. You can see I've just got some Scotch tape laid across here just to close it off. So this is a very poor example of a baffle, but you can see exactly how much change is made to the sounds even with a poor baffle. So we always want to make sure that we put a baffle on our speakers inside the model when you're doing your installation. Now, in some cases, some of our speakers don't come with a baffle, nor do we offer a commercially available baffle. And the reason for that is because if you're putting it in a model like this, for example, you may have to determine how deep that is, how much space you have available, and you can build a baffle pretty easily out of styrene. You can check out some of our installation videos that we've done, or give us an email and we'll walk you through the process. But it's actually pretty simple and easy to build a baffle, and you can see it makes a drastic difference. Now, the next one comes up when it comes to speaker placement. And always the question we get is, where's the best place to put the speaker? Well, the reality is it's going to depend on the model. So in some cases, like for example, I have this model here, which is an Athearn CF7. The radiator fans are open. So you could certainly put the speaker in such a way that it sits under the radiator fans and the sound emanates out of the top of the model. There's other instances where, say for example, these are all cast closed and you need to find a way so you can mount the speaker still up in the top of the long hood, but now facing downward so that the sound emanates from around the trucks. Some models, especially some of the more recent ones, do have places where the speaker housing is already built into the model. Now, as we've discussed previously with our baffles, it may or may not be the best, but it's better than none. But you may need to use that baffle since that's the way the model's designed. But if you're designing the model and you're doing an installation like this model, which was never designed for sound, you certainly have carte blanche to be able to put the speaker where you can fit it. Now, in this case, particularly, you have a fairly large cab. You can fit a much larger speaker up front in the cab area than you could, say, under the long hood. So it's really up to you to decide how and where it is. Now, in some cases, there are instances where the model will have a speaker opening in the fuel tank. And again, it's up to you. You can choose to use that, or you can leave that open and mount the speaker up on the top of the long hood. And in the case of steam locomotives, you can certainly mount them inside the tender, in the coal load, or under the coal load. And you can even mount some of the speakers up inside the front of the boiler and drill out the opening in the stack so that the sound kind of emanates across the entire locomotive to make it feel like the locomotive itself is making the sound and not, as it's passing you see loco, 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 oh, here comes the sound. So that way it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So speaker placement will vary depending on the design of the model. So take a look at it, and if you can fit some of the cubes up front in a steam engine, or you can fit 2 of the cubes back there, or let's say you have to build a baffle with a speaker to fit in there, You've got lots of opportunities and ways to make it work. If you need any suggestions or thoughts, give us an email at support@soundtraxx.com. We'll share our thoughts and see if we can help you have a successful installation. Now, when it comes to decoder installation, a lot of times during the way, we want to test the model. We want to make sure the decoder installation is successful each step of the way. Now, one of the biggest things that happens is, especially if you have a wired type decoder, is you can have loose wires all over the place, and trying to manage them while you're testing the model on the track is kind of hard, especially if you have the shell off as well. But I will tell you that those wires are just cut, and so there is exposed wire at the very end of that wire. Even though it looks insulated and everything, it's not like the metal and the wire sucks up inside. Nope, it's right there on the end. So if you let that wire hang loose and, say, accidentally touch the end of a rail, you can certainly blow up the amplifier. And so you want to take caution when you're doing that. Now, in some of my installation videos that I've done here on our YouTube channel, you can go in and grab some self-closing tweezers and group wires together so that way they're easier to manage while you're testing your model during your installation, so that way you can prevent the wires from shorting against a live rail. Well, folks, I hope this has been helpful for you. This is just some of the other tips and hints that go along with speaker placement that we've been asked and talked about since our last speaker video. And I'm really excited to hear the responses that you guys are actually watching and paying attention to this, because this is a very, very important topic, especially as more and more people start using SoundTraxx decoders, because we want to help make sure that your installations are successful the first time and not after we find out something was wrong, or maybe you didn't follow a good practice. So anyway, if you have any further questions or you'd like to carry on the discussion, please give us an email at support@soundtraxx.com, and we'll be happy to help you any way you need. If you have a question, don't be ashamed to ask it. We're here to help you so that you can enjoy your hobby. So with that, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.